Okay, so this is the lower portion of the body. I haven't drilled this and tapped this out yet. This is the section for the bottom part. I've got two lines here. This is how deep this hole is drilled right here. And this first line is just letting me know where the ink cartridge is going to end, you know, plugged into the section. So I can go just beyond this, you know, anywhere in here, as long as I don't drill it all the way through. I don't want to drill it all the way through just in case there's an ink cartridge failure. It leaks for whatever reason, and I don't want the ink to get into the USB and ruin the USB. So as long as I'm going somewhere within this area here, drilling it out, it should be fine. And I'm going to use a 3/8 inch drill and drill that down. What's that, about an inch and a quarter, inch and 3/8. I should be good. And again, there's my line right there. So I'm just going to drill it out that deep. Turn the speed down. And then while that is on there, I'm just gonna run my tap on that, tap that through real quick. Remember, Ebonite is much more forgiving than acrylic. If this was acrylic, I would have to put an exterior piece around that to keep it from fracturing or completely shattering on me. But if it gets too thin, then it will. But that's why Ebonite's so expensive, I guess. You're going to end up spending about $20 plus a rod. That's for your basic Japanese or German Ebonite. So anyway, this is German Cumberland Ebonite from Vermont freehand. And again, I put some, this is ready to accept the section now. So I just have to make the section next. But first there's other part of the body I need to make. So the piece, the bottom tail piece, what we're going to do here is we're going to route out a small groove. So at the drill press, I've got my milling jig set up. And I have a 1/8 inch router bit in here. And that is just going to hold that in place. And I'm going to line that up close to center. Or it's actually going to be off center. Let's take a look. So if we look at our USB right here, that's roughly about 1/8 of an inch. So that's what I'm going to go with. That's why I'm using a 1/8 inch carbide tipped router bit. And I'm only going to groove that, what's about 3/8 of an inch wide, which is within that 14 millimeters right here. If you can see that or not, and still leaves me quite a bit of room. and I can seat that all the way down to here without worry about it, because the black line that you see, like I said earlier, that's how far that goes into the computer. So if I've got that 1/8 of an inch play to work with after the fact, I'm good with that. So that's just going to reset inside there, and that looks like it's going to take that full depth of cut all the way. So anyway, we'll go ahead and play this by ear and see how it goes. Micro precision. That's what that looks like at first. So it needs to be a little bit wider. That's fine. And like I said, I'm just going to fill that in with a little epoxy. I actually like where that's going to be located. So a little bit wider on each side. Okay, there's our hole drilled out, and I got a little bit of a step down the inside. It's not very pretty, but once I put a little epoxy in there, and then that is flushed to the bottom right there. Again, that just barely fits inside that 14mm thread. I think this side looks a little bit better. It's a little more balanced. Well, anyway, once I get that epoxied in there, then this will go inside here. I just need to do a little fine tuning on the inside of that. And then, of course, this will be the basics of our pen. So this is the lowercase, the body, and then the cap. And then this will be cut off probably right about here. So it's not quite as long. But this has to be fairly long for the middle section of the body. That's really tight. Again, to accommodate for that depth, which is again right at that line. And this hole again is drilled down about there for the upper cartridge. So the next part we'll put the whole thing together like this. I won't glue this in until afterwards, because I want to be able to turn the whole body, because I'm going to be wet sanding it. I don't want any moisture inside and ruining the thumb drive. But anyway, that's it so far. Okay, so back on the lathe. This is the middle section of the lower portion of the body. This is the end piece of the body that we routed out a bit. And then on the back end, I have it dimpled. And that's for the life center. So because this is 14mm thick, I have my calipers set at 15mm, and that doesn't give me much room as far as how much I can take off. That's only about 1/2 millimeter on each side, you know, as far as meat goes. So, you know, I think I'll make that 15.5mm, because I'm going to have to do some sanding and polishing as far as how thick I can take this down. So we'll change that to 15.5mm. before we start turning. Okay, so these are 15.5 millimeters. These are my marks. This is the middle. This is the end where I'm going to cut off the piece right here. And then, as you can see, and that's going to leave me a little bit of room for sanding. And then I'm just going to turn that off camera real quick. Okay, that's just roughly turned down. Right now, I'm just going to sand that to shape so I don't go too far with the tool. Okay, I've got this mostly turned down and just rough sanded. Now I'm starting with the micro mesh on it. Okay, so this is the body that's been polished. And if I unscrew the tail, this is where the USB is going to go. I'm going to glue that in next off of camera. And you can see how thin that sidewall is. That's about 15.25 altogether. So it's very thin if you take into account of how thin the threads are and how deep they are. So anyway, I lucked out on that one. Sometimes you can plan, and sometimes blind luck plays a big part of it too. So I got the cap in here next, and we'll turn the cap down again off camera, and I'm going to cut about 1/4 inch off of that. Okay, so this is the body turned, and that is the tail end is inserted. And I've got a couple lines here on this tape to kind of illustrate what I was talking about earlier. So this is the depth right here to this line right here. And if I go by this first line, which is a little bit lighter, that's done in lead. You can see how deep this is right here. So that's how deep that goes. If I screw that in, that's obviously not going to bottom out, so I'm happy with that. I got about a little more than 1/8 of an inch clearance on the inside, so that's great right there. On this line here, unscrew the tail. That's a little stiff still. I need to lubricate those threads. We can see that this is how deep, how far that goes inside. And if I use my trusty measuring device, that is the first line right there, and that's how deep that hole is right there. So anyway, that's just an overview of how that looks. And again, you can see how thin that is. Very, very thin. And a little tight to get in there, but once I lubricate those threads, it'll be a lot easier. But anyway, that's the body.